do you guys want to do there?
But see, you got your name on here, that's all.
Well, that's, I don't know how to change that.
Okay.
Guess you could do MCTV and see.
Yeah.
You don't need to do anything now.
All right, there's Justin.
Now unmute yourself. Or
Okay.
have you already?
No.
What
Mute.
did you just do?
I didn't do nothing.
Okay, well then don't do anything.
Okay, it's apparently unmuted.
Are you muted here?
Oh,
Well, don't do anything, huh?
okay.
What does it say in the corner? Mute?
Right here it says mute. No, it just
No, in corner of your picture.
this is minor.
Oh, okay. I got it.
There you are.
There should be something about muting and unmuting. You have your hearing aids on?
I do. Okay, here's a lot of stuff. Here's mute stop. Probably just click on the mute button.
No, wait a minute. Get your thing off there. You don't want to mute it, so I think you're on.
I think that gets it all is what I was thinking. But maybe
I think you're just fine. Just
Okay.
wait a minute. See if they say anything.
here's Mike Steiner. I haven't seen him in a long time. Hi, Mike.
There we go. I'm doing fine. And you?
Great.
Okay. Do you want your mic on?
Yes.
Okay.
If you don't want to be talking, you just put the mute on.
Right. Nice to see all your smiling faces. Hi, Len.
Hi, good to be here.
Thank you. We haven't figured out yet why I am identified with my wife's name. Anybody can help us with that, why fine. Otherwise, you know, it's not Mina, my bride, but Dawn Van Cleef.
Are you using her iPad by any chance? Or her technology?
She's the technologist on this end.
That might be it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's my email address too.
That's probably it. It's fun in some Zoom meetings, people happen to use their kid's iPad for that day and you come up with some real unique names, that's for sure, because they name them some unique things.
And Lynn and company, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. We've got all sorts of wires running around here, so thank you.
Good. And from what Justin has told me is he's gonna keep us muted until he comes back on so we can chit chat if we would like.
I don't see a picture of Frank Relling. I see his name, but
So Michael Tefts, can you hear me?
I can, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
How's come Worcester's football team ends up with 5 away games out of 6 games total?
Luck?
Is that it's how much the rest of the conference admires the superintendent, or
That might be it too.
Okay.
Um, to be honest with you, I am to blame for that. You might remember that we
yes.
shut football down for a couple of weeks. I just was not comfortable with the protocols that were coming out of the OHSAA. Once the governor came out with some new protocols, we had felt much more comfortable about that. So in the meantime, the OCC had already drafted a schedule. So then they had to redraft that when we jumped back in. So I take the blame for that. But in the meantime, Coach Haas will tell you he's perfectly happy traveling during these crazy times. It's a whole lot easier to get on a bus, go play, and then just leave.
You were going to get blamed anyhow, so it really doesn't matter. You might as well assume the responsibility, right?
You got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, well, you're welcome.
Well, I hope, Michael, if you're taking the blame for the away games, you're taking the blame for those wins. That's been good.
I wish that I could, but
Hmm.
you know what has been really fun about this too is not only are they undefeated, but they are just a wonderful group of kids.
Good.
Pretty veteran, so it's a senior dominated class, but it's a really nice group of kids, and I think Coach Haas and his staff are having a fun time.
Good.
Hey, our Zoomers, by the way, we have about, there's around 50, it looks like 51 people with guests here today. So it's a really good number for us. Yeah, I can't hear you, Lynn. I'm
Just-
sorry.
Can you
Yeah.
make the announcement again for any Zoomers calling in to just email me their attendance? I think I've got most everybody already.
Okay. And then just so the Zoomers know, we are going to have some guests today, but with the lack of ability to Zoom and carry mics, you probably won't hear them. So apologize about that. Okay. We'll start here in just a minute. Thank you.
You want to turn your audio off or your video? I don't know how you do it.
So leave on the phone.
We could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. From a distance, please greet your neighbors. Zoomers, please say hello to everybody. So yeah. And we do not have an invocation today, so you can please be seated. We'll get back to the invocation here soon. I before we kick things off, at least wanted to say thank you so much to Cheryl and Becky for helping us out on the wiring. Samara, thank you for lugging things around. We really appreciate it. We got more wires here than we know what to do with, but we're going to make sure today's program is of benefit to everybody. We have guests here. We do not have a traveling mic. I told the Zoomers that they would not be able to see our guests, but virtually here, or actually in person, we'll go around the room. So we'll start back with Big Mike. We have guests right now. Tom Pukish.
Just
President?
yes.
I've got a guest, Miss Samara Zimmerly. She's the president of the Worcester Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm not sure what I do, so do you have a number of guests? Excellent. Did I miss anybody? We don't have this written down, so I'm shooting from the hip. So not bad, not bad. Well, welcome guests. We hope that you enjoy the program today. An announcement for our Zoomers. If your name is not on your screen there, make sure that you send identification over to Lynn for, believe it or not, Lynn Mumal is still doing attendance. So I got photos of everybody verifying you're here. So hey, I do what I'm told. So we want to get right into the slides today. Wanted to cover a couple of things and really highlight that as we get up and running here, folks, one thing that we need to keep in mind, if you can believe that it is our 100th anniversary. You should have been receiving email correspondence. I believe that, I know Ray Lizzie and Kimberly, past President Kimberly, have been sending out emails. I believe we're on story number 23 or 24. I had to look at it. So we're in the 1960s of our history. But a couple of things that are happening for our 100th anniversary is that you can see, obviously, the articles have been put together. We have some downtown banners. If you've went through downtown, those banners are hung and they look extremely nice. So thank you to the city of Worcester and thank you for Main Street and getting us in the rotation. We also are looking at our 100th anniversary celebration. So I won't steal any of Phil Mariola's his presentation at all. I know he's going to cover a community project, but the plan is still to have a anniversary celebration March 2021. No, we're not going to have it 6 months ago. Obviously on the slide. But the exact date is to be determined. And then venue and format is under discussion. So if anybody has any input on that, please share that with myself, with Phil, and we'll make sure that the group hears that as well. Also, Cheryl, if we can go a couple slides over, you should see. Now, this is an interesting photo that Phil brought to light, and I don't know who the gentleman's name is. Phil, do you? So that when Rotary started out, it was right on, that would be North Street, correct? At the corner of North and Buckeye. And it was Mer Printing, above Mer Printing. And so every week they carried this gentleman upstairs, which is pretty impressive. That's Mike Steiner's dad. That's awesome. So Mike is on the line, so he got to see that photo. That's pretty cool. If we can go one more slide, Cheryl. And then you've seen that we also have some articles that are in the paper as well. Might want to move this slide here a little bit, Cheryl. But the Wooster Rotarian, that has been in the newspaper and that will continue to be produced. Phil, thank you and your team for making sure that that is put together. I think we're going to have, there 5 or 6 of those? 5 more renditions of the Wooster Rotarian that will be commemorating our 100th year. So I'm going to have Phil come up and highlight the community project because that's an important piece to what we are looking to do this year, and he can go over that.
Thank you. A few nights ago, our district and 2 other districts in Ohio had a big virtual conference talking about membership because Rotary Clubs are suffering right now, just like all cities. And there were some very good ideas that were exchanged. We broke off in little smaller groups. And somebody from the Salem, Ohio Club had a very great suggestion. I think we would all agree, we need some kind of a focus right now in our town. And what they did in Salem, they canvassed all the membership of the Salem Rotary Club. And they asked them, would you please think about identifying a need in your community? Because all of you work somewhere and you're familiar with organizations in our town or agencies that have a real need right now. And we need to know that. So we would like you to think about, to try to identify a real need in our community, in the Worcester community, and let us know, let Justin know, or Linda know, or myself. That's really all I wanted to say today. we have a lot of very bright people out there, with a couple exceptions, and bring us some good ideas. Find, identify a need in our community and bring it to Justin, Lynn, and myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. So yeah, if you have an idea for a community project, we kind of want to make a splash. Up here you can see, if you can't see because the screen's a little light today, but $35,000 has been allocated to do a community project. We can make a difference this year. Obviously, it's been a little slower for us kicking things off, but now that we're meeting together, we want to ramp things back up and make sure that we're on the right track for our 100th anniversary. We can go to the next slide. And then also, it's not on your table, but a proposed new member that came to the board and was approved. So if there's any questions, comments, concerns with Ms. Samara Zimmerly joining us, please let myself or Lynn know. But right now, also, our current membership, we're right at 162 people. So next slide. And then also, we will be having Meals with a Mission. The date on that will be November 2nd, 2020. So that's coming up. Those details are being put together. So the committee that met last year, we will have a meeting. We did just have a discussion to make sure that this date was at least secured and that TJ still wants to do it. Greg had much excitement and said absolutely want to hold that tradition. That format and how we're going to do that with the restrictions, we're in the midst of developing that. So I think there'll be probably an enhanced carryout component, but we are going to have that event in that program. Okay. And then also one other, if you can go to the next slide, I think it should be flags at this point. It is. I'm going to turn things over to Joy Schmidt and then Susan Marlar, who are going to cover the flag, an update on our parade of flags. Susan's going to go first.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am here just to talk about the flag program. COVID did not slow us down at all. We are still putting out lots of flags. We were up to almost 2,000 with about 300 going out to schools, municipalities, the nonprofits. The city has stepped up and Don Noble has put out lots of flags around the hospital, the bridges, and hopefully everybody's noticed that, and that's kudos to the city and Don for doing that. I'm going to talk mainly not about numbers, but about the different roles and committees we have, and maybe it'll spark interest in some people to want to help and contribute to the program. We started out with about 3 committees 10 years ago, and we're probably up to 12. So we're trying to carve out pieces of the project and get more people involved and spread the opportunity to be part of the project. Terry Snoddy is our route master. The route master is the one who develops all the routes. These 2,000 flags have to go to different places. He works with the groups to, or he started this. It's gone off to Cheryl Boyer now who's doing it, but he works with the groups to send in the routes and troubleshoot then if there's any issues with that. Sarah Baker, Cheryl just took that over last year, and then Terry is also the liaison with the community groups, all the volunteer groups, and he is going to hand that off to me next year and when he becomes president of Rotary. So there's lots of opportunity in that area to get involved. Sarah Baker at Critchfield and her crew there do all the administrative work of the program. That's recording all the subscriber database, sending out renewal notices, collecting the deposits, troubleshooting any subscriber issues. Sarah and Terry also both this last winter did an amazing job. We converted the database again. Andrew Vaith turned us on to, we weren't very happy with the database we had, and Andrew Vaith turned us on to a company down in Texas that a gentleman has an IT company, and he's also a Rotarian, and he also has the flag program. He developed his own program that he's selling nationwide to clubs, and ours is probably one of the biggest groups he's got. So he's very attuned to working with us, and he's enhancing the program and listening to ideas that we have. And so we're very happy with the program we have now. And if you get involved with the project, you'll get access to the database and be able to help us out in that area. But Sarah and Terry both did that conversion within about a month. We decided to do it, and it was done within a month or 2. So we're excited about that. Brent Rice is our flag responder. That means when the flag routes go out, he gets calls from subscribers or from the groups where they couldn't find the pipes or they missed the location. And we can have as much as 150 calls Memorial Day. So that's a lot of calls to assemble and send out and get people to respond to. The other holidays are between 50 and 75. So this is a need that is ongoing. We're trying to be proactive and figure out, Brent has been really good about developing a history of locations that maybe are a problem or route groups or whatever, and we're trying to be proactive to try to not have so many. Wayne Bear was our maintenance coordinator for many years, and he handed that off to Tom Rumbaugh, who also is the facility manager. We've got a great facility. The city worked with us, or was collaborating along with Justin to move the flags to a new location out on Mechanicsburg. So it's 24-hour access. We're able to go in and do maintenance anytime, and Tom schedules all that as well as keeps up with the flag inventory. Lee King took on the supply coordinator role, and that's just making sure we have supplies, pipes that go in the ground, the flags, the ties, the hair bands, the tool installation kits. He's got a lot of those now, so there's a lot to go into, and we're trying to save money with, you know, trying to find flags that are made in the USA and that are better quality. So we're always looking to improve in that area. Mike Steiner's the installation coordinator. He has a crew that goes out and does all the new installations, or where there's construction, we have to redo pipes. He's got that area well organized and well flowing. Marty Starkey has been involved in the renewal process. We now have Google Voice. Matt Long got us involved with all the calls now come to Google Voice instead of my home phone. No more, where's my flag at my house? I didn't answer one call last holiday. So Marty mans the Google Voice line and works with Brent Rice as far as any calls that come in. And that's an ongoing thing too, because that number is published everywhere, as Joy will tell you on her publications. The route coordinator is Peggy Schmitz, and we're up to almost 200 flags, I think, that Rotarians are putting out, which means we're earning a lot more money when Rotarians put the flags out, because we're earning that $10 a flag that goes to the volunteer groups, and that's going up to $12. We have increased our price from $35 to $40, and we're sharing that amount. We're sharing $2 of the amount with the community groups to give them more money. There's a lot of other special little programs. Jennifer Schatzer has the library program. Bobby Douglas does the gift certificates. Tom Hill places flags at Diller Park. Tom Swift places flags at the cemetery. Don Noble does a Rotary routes. There's a lot of little niches that are out there also, and I know I'm going to miss somebody. I think everyone has touched this program in some form or fashion, but there's still a lot of other opportunities. Greg Long in his office does the accounting and the finance. So I want to thank everybody that's helped with this program, the veteran people that have been on it since, you know, day one, new people that have jumped in and helped, but there's still a lot of opportunities. So I hope this sparks a little bit of interest to maybe get involved and see what can be done. All the jobs I mentioned, they need backup. If something happens to one, you know, person that, like what Brent Rice does, I'm not sure any of us can really know how to do, so there's a backup that we need there. So there's as much or as little as you want that you can do. I'm going to turn it over to the newest person, is Joy Smith. This is an area that really needed help, and that's the marketing area. We have done no marketing in probably 8 years. And she has taken it on and revamped our flyers, has new programs to talk about, and we're hoping to get our numbers up and make a lot more money for the club and put a lot more flags out. So Joy Smith.
Hi everyone. I was out on my flag route last week, picking up along Wayne Avenue in Saunders, and I was stopped by a couple who I know, and they wanted to make sure to tell me that they had been stopped over the past flag holiday by a tow truck driver from out of town who was driving down Wayne Avenue and just had to know the story behind the flags. He felt very passionate about them. He expressed his gratitude to this stranger couple from out of town because he loved coming into Worcester and seeing all those flags. He said that he and his family were former Marines and it meant a lot to him. So I thought that that was pretty cool. And I think chances are if you're involved in the flag program at all, you probably have heard a story like that or have come across an interaction like that. So that's why we really think that it's important to grow the flag program and put some concerted marketing efforts into it, not just because we're generating funds for Rotary's projects and for local civic groups, but also because we're spreading goodwill, connecting strangers, enhancing, enriching our community, and just fostering gratitude. So the flag committee has determined that there's pretty much limitless opportunity. We're ready to service as many subscriptions as come in. So we've geared up with some new marketing. Thank you, Tracy. She has put together a lot of new collateral for us. A couple of the samples might be rotating up here on the screen, and I'll come back to this one that I'm holding in my hand in a moment. But we want to go and take this momentum that Susan spoke about from this year and parlay it into next year. So right now we're in the middle of a Veterans Day promotion. Between now and October 9th, any new subscribers to the program will get Veterans Day placement this year for free with their subscription for next year. We've run this promotion before with success, and we're bringing it back again and trying it here. We've also made some other efforts. You may have seen the Clear Channel commercial that Andy Jones did. That's running again. Thank you, Andy. And we've updated the Rotary website and our social media presence with new information about the program. So thank you to Greg Barbu and Jennifer Schatzer for that. We're also leveraging some partnerships. Big thank you to Justin and his team at the Chamber who have been posting to social media and put information about the flag program in their Friday newsletter last week, and we'll be doing so this week as well. And then there's something really new and exciting that we're trying with a social media giveaway through the Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, something that they've done with other organizations before and said it's brought great success. So we're looking forward to running that probably within the week. Also, thank you to Jennifer Schatzer for library posting to the Facebook page and mentioning there how important the flag program is to the library because it helps to fund their children's programming. And then the database that Susan mentioned, that new database gave us the opportunity to send out an email blast. So maybe you saw in your inbox, if you are a current subscriber, an email blast from our Helping with Friends database. Within that is a really easy and handy link to refer a friend. And that's what we're calling this campaign that we need your help with. If you can forward that email along to a friend, family member, someone you know who doesn't have a current subscription, that would really help us because we believe that our members, our membership, are our greatest assets for marketing. So we want to, number one, make sure every Rotarian has a subscription. If you do not, now's the time, great time. You can get Veterans Day for free. And if you live outside of the Worcester-Smithville area where we service, please consider a gift subscription, maybe a new neighbor, maybe a family member, or a library placement. If you already have a subscription, please refer a friend who does not. Check out that email and send it along. And then finally, if you're a Rotarian who has a flag route, this is just a mock-up of one of the things that we'll be doing. When we pick up from Veterans Day placement, we'll be giving all of the Rotary route distributors these door hangers to hang on the doors of all the houses that don't currently have a flag subscription. So as they're picking up flags, simply hang this on the door and hopefully we'll garner those new subscriptions for next year. So a lot going on and any other ideas and ways that you can help out and get involved, we're open to hearing. So reach out to me. Thank you.
ladies, for the update. We appreciate it. You know, it's a vital piece to our budget every year. Great visibility as well to the Wooster Rotary Club. So a couple of things before we kick things over to Doug Druschel, who will introduce our speaker. Comments. If there's comments about the venue, facility, social distancing, how we're approaching our events, our meetings rather. Again, this is just our second one live. Send those to us. We had a couple of comments last week. We've taken most of that into consideration and have further conversation about that, but we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable while they're here as we transition, hopefully in the fall, back to first. Lastly, you should have received an email from me this morning. The top had an overview of our speakers. At the bottom was our meeting for next week. So Paul Fryman will be speaking from JFB on what's happening at that local spot and some new brews that he has hopefully on tap this fall. So if you have not RSVP'd, please feel free to do that, or make sure you do that so that we can have our count accurate here. Without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to good friend Doug Druschel, who will introduce our speaker. Doug.
Thank you, Justin. Very pleased today to introduce my longtime friend and our fellow Rotarian, Dee Vaidya. He was born in Bombay, India, a small town of 20 million, now known as Mumbai. Dee was raised 100 miles away in Pune, a much smaller town of only 7 million. He attended the Bishop's School in Pune, a Church of England affiliated Christian missionary school, where the medium of instruction was English. Although he reads, writes, and speaks 3 other languages, English has always been his first language. This is consistent with my personal observation with people I have encountered on my trips to India, which indicates that they care more about proper English than we do. During Dee's youth, he was a prolific reader of various genres, although his college degree was a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology in Bombay. He later received a master's degree in polymer science from the University of Akron. Later yet, a master's degree in industrial administration from Purdue. 3 years after completing his higher education, Dee went back to India and worked at his father's rubber products company. But he missed the United States and the free market system, so he returned to Akron at the beginning of 1979. Fortuitous move, because in 1980 he met there his wife, Mary, who you've met, who's a Worcester native, who was then working at the university. Dee and Mary have been married for over 39 years, have 3 adult children and a nice collection of grandchildren. The couple started a business in Worcester from Mary's family home in 1993 with $5,000 and a dream. That was the beginning of Technographics, Inc. Dee and Mary sold Technographics in 2010, but during the sale, Dee spun out the engineering services division and kept it as a separate company, now known as Nobletech. He's now chairman of that 50-employee engineering services firm that focuses on programming for the U.S. aerospace industry. May 2012, Dee also acquired RDM Equipment, also in Worcester. He's the president there. The company distributes small equipment and spare parts in the oil industry. He's been quite active in the Worcester community, including a term as chairman of the board of the Worcester Area Chamber of Commerce. Earlier this year, Dee received the Chamber's Board of Directors Award in recognition of his efforts to help Wayne County economic community to prosper, especially recognizing his leadership with the Wayne Economic Forum, which has brought top-notch business talent to Worcester to share their business insights with us. He continues to read voraciously and enjoys biographies of business and political leaders. He and Mary split their time between Worcester and Sarasota, Florida. But no matter where he is, he's haunted by his pet peeve, the bastardized English language. Dee will enlighten us today on that topic. So Dee, I hope I did not commit any grammatical errors in this introduction. Please join me in welcoming Dee Vaidya.
Folks, it's been 50 years this month since I came to the United States, exactly 50 years. And for quite a while after I got here, I've been wondering what happened to our language. Despite Professor Henry Higgins stating in the mid-60s In America, it hasn't been used for years. English was well spoken and written in the mainstream of our society. Any longer, however, that is not the case. And here's a more recent British view of American English. Can you start the video?
Just started the program. G's running something very much think we're getting sound, but
Oh.
he quoted Henry Higgins as saying English in America hasn't been spoken for years.
It's too bad.
It's 1 minute and 9 seconds long. So,
Should be almost done.
yeah.
So all that jockeying aside, the man who wrote the first English dictionary, Samuel Johnson, gave this advice about how to use it. He said, while promulgating your esoteric cogitations or articulating your superficial sentimentalities and amicable philosophical or psychological observations, beware of polysyllabic profundity and pompous propensity. What he meant was, use simple words. I would also like to add, please use them correctly, lest they be jarring to your listeners' ears. Have you ever wondered why so many people don't know that criterion is singular and criteria is plural? How many times have you read something like the student who brings a knife to school to peel their orange may be expelled? A student is not plural, so how can it be their orange? Or hypercorrections, like the judge admonished the driver whom everyone knew had struck the cat. No, the judge admonished the driver who everyone knew had struck the cat. In short, have you ever wondered why so many people who should know better make grammatical errors? Earlier in the 20th century, professional writers and educated speakers could be expected to make few grammatical errors. Newspapers and magazines were edited not only for content and length, but for grammatical correctness. This is no longer the case. Newspapers, magazines, newscasts, and of course the internet are rife with errors like the ones above.
Spelling.
Have you ever said, would you get that report done? When you get that report done, can you send it to Bill and I?
No, Bill and me.
Well, that's not how Sarah Ferguson spoke last year when she was talking about Prince Andrew's involvement in the Epstein scandal. She said the last 6 months have been hard on the girls and me. Not I, but me, because she meant it was hard on us. Or have you ever heard someone say, her and me are going shopping tomorrow?
Yeah.
You'd have thought, I can't hardly believe what you said. Other than Sarah's remarks, all are incorrect. If you take Bill out of the first question, it would become, when you get that report done, can you send it to I? Well, clearly that's not what you meant. You meant, can you send it to me? Likewise, with Bill included, you meant, can you send it to us? Well, us means you and me. You and I is we. If we are going shopping tomorrow, you and I are going shopping, or she and I are going shopping tomorrow, not her and me. I can hardly believe what people say. Not can't hardly believe. I would say this about millennials. None of them are ready to write grammatically correct English. Or wait, should I say none of them is ready? Clearly, it should be the singular, as none means not one. Not one of them is ready. A youngster recently said to me, to keep up with their changing audience, Southwest Airlines has rebranded itself. A Purdue business professor made me aware of that mistake decades ago. A business is not a plural, she told our class. A business is not plural, she told our class. It's not they, it's it. To keep up with its changing audience, Southwest Airlines has rebranded itself. I have no doubt that the reason for this profusion of grammatical errors is that most American elementary and high school students aren't taught English grammar anymore. And I'm afraid that linguistics may be largely to blame. Linguistics is a social science whose goals, amongst others, are to describe languages and dialects, to show how various languages are related, to explain how children acquire their native language, to discover how language is understood, and to demonstrate how different forms of language are used in different situations. Linguists are trained not to make value judgments, so they refuse to be prescriptive and let non-standard English usages creep into areas where they would not have been allowed 50 years ago, but now are acceptable. The effect has been to lower the bar for students and their teachers. But even more damage to the teaching of grammar was wrought by the misuse of a linguistic theory called transformational generative grammar, which was developed by Noam Chomsky. Beware when anyone uses the word transformation. Chomsky made his name as the father of transformational generative grammar, or TG. In the 60s, he was a prominent MIT linguistics professor. He proposed a theory of grammar that could easily explain the different meanings of ambiguous sentences, such as, visiting relatives can be boring. That sentence could mean relatives who are visiting can be boring, or when one visits relatives, it can be boring. Traditional grammar would have some trouble providing these different explanations, but Chomsky's method could elegantly explain the deep structure of such sentences through sentence diagramming, which helps one understand the underlying relationships among actors, actions, and objects. His method of diagramming sentences, unfortunately, became standard as in linguistics. Transformational generative grammar was the beginning of the end of the teaching of grammar in schools. Since it was the up-and-coming thing, and because Chomsky had great charisma, this stupidity spread to other fields in the humanities. And surprise, surprise, particularly to university and college education departments. Attempts were even made to incorporate teaching into elementary and high school curricula. But educators and writers of school textbooks had missed the point. Teaching was a theory of grammar and not a teaching tool. Using TG to teach elementary school students English grammar was like using Einstein's general theory of relativity to teach school children about gravity. Teachers did not understand TG, and students viewed it as another incomprehensible subject like new math. Fortunately, in the 1960s and 70s, most teachers knew the English grammar they had been taught, and so could help their students learn at least some grammar. Within a number of years, however, grammar ceased to be taught as a separate subject and was just sprinkled through basic readers. Why should American children have to be formally taught their own language when they're thinking? 20 years later, the elementary school students who had not formally learned grammar were now teaching English. They had never been exposed to the traditional grammar books of the 1940s and 50s, so they could not explain even rudimentary grammatical forms, such as what is the difference between a phrase, a clause, and a phrase. The herd immunity conferred on teachers in the 1960s and 70s by their own exposure to traditional grammar had worn off, and there was no one to teach grammar to our children, who have become today's reporters, journalists, writers, and newscasters. It's time again to formally teach traditional grammar in the schools, says Vida Charo, the principal investigator on numerous linguistic studies and former director of communications in the US federal government for 22 years. Linguist descriptive doctrine is essentially anti-education. Teaching people about good usage, their argument goes, interferes with the natural forces of language, so leave speakers alone. This relieves teachers of the responsibility to teach standard English, and it dooms us all to the dialect of the household in which we grew up. One result is more rigid formation of social strata. After all, you're unlikely to gain any responsible position if you can't speak and write standard English. So much for bringing about equality. Some of the interest in words comes from people who like to put less educated people down, from language snobs, who give good usage a bad name. But most of the interest, I think, comes from a search for standards and values. We resent fogginess. We wonder if in language we can find a few of the old moorings. We're not groping for the bygone. We're reaching for a firm foothold in fundamentals. It's far easier to destroy a language than to create one. A standard language requires a body of speakers. Speakers trained to distinguish correct constructions from incorrect ones, usual forms from unusual ones. Such training is neither short nor easy, and it's unrealistic to expect that English teachers can give it to their pupils if, along with teaching standard English, they're expected to encourage speech and writing in dialect. By devaluing standard English, the new orthodoxy is destroying it. The prescriber, on the other hand, cares about how language is used here and now. The linguist views language more distantly, observing that linguistic change is inevitable. After all, Latin evolved into French, Italian, and the other Romance languages. And the French, Italians, and others haven't been adversely affected by linguistic evolution. This is like a geographer arguing that seismic disruptions along the San Andreas Fault hardly matter in the larger scheme of things, since continents and seas will come and go. In the history of the Earth, an earthquake in Los Angeles doesn't amount geographically to a blip on the big screen. But of course, earthquakes do matter to the people who experience them. And how language is used today, here and now, does matter to people who speak it, hear it, write it, and read it. Saying it's inevitable that linguistic drift will occur doesn't help someone who is unsure about how to say irrevocable, what preposition to use after oblivious, or whether the verb after a number of people should be singular or plural. Then we come to emerging confusions in diction that threaten to spread. Disperse for disperse, fruit melody for fruit medley, heart rendering for heart rending, or plural forms that careful writers want to maintain as plural, such as criteria, paparazzi, and phenomena. These are words and phrases about which writers must make choices daily. There aren't just a few dozens of trouble spots in the language, there are several thousand of them. For a writer to remain unconscious of these pitfalls and write whatever sounds close enough will surely lead to a loss of credibility. Precision is the touchstone, yet usage doesn't hold much interest for linguists. One linguist said, nothing in language is essentially vulgar or genteel, barbarous or elegant, right or wrong, except as the user of the language wants to feel. But most writers believe that words and phrases can and have.
Nobody help me, Dad. Don't be obnoxious. So I had a very busy weekend. I'm sorry that you don't feel that that matters.
Could you put your
I don't have a lot of
speaker on-
time.
Could you put your mic
I was
on
out
mute,
Friday.
please?
Saturday, I went to the football games. Well, you don't have to be obnoxious. You don't have to be obnoxious. My free time is so limited.
Sorry about that. This one linguist said, nothing is in language is essentially vulgar or genteel, barbarous or elegant, right or wrong, except as the user of the language wants to feel. But most writers believe that words and phrases can have right and wrong qualities. And this describer acknowledged it. We must have standards, he said. After all, who makes the language? You and I and everybody. We make the language. And what do we want in this product? Obviously, we want a number of things, but we also want standards. We may not know just what standards we want, nor how rigidly we want them applied, but we do want them in spelling, in punctuation, in diction, in usage, in all aspects of language. And we rely on English teachers to inform us which are the best standards. Teachers had better be prepared to tell us, because even literate people continue to yearn for guidance on linguistic questions. Half a century ago, an English teacher characterized the current state of affairs as this: the public may not care whether English teachers eat or not, but if there's any sentiment in favor of feeding them, I'm willing to bet that the idea is to keep them alive as English teachers. That is, as a kind of traffic cop, to tell us where to stop and when to move, when to stop and when to move on, where to park and where we may not. If English teachers don't want to be traffic cops, then they might as well turn in their badges. Through the latter half of the 20th century until today, there's been an academic assault on linguistic standards. Today, the remark, "That's not good English," would likely be met with the rejoinder, "Says who?" This is because people are increasingly hearing the dogma that no use of language is better than any other. Today, the teaching of standard English is being labeled discriminatory. An essay published in 1998 by a University of Michigan linguist says this: in an age when discrimination in terms of race, color, religion, or gender is not publicly acceptable, the last bastion of overt social discrimination will continue to be a person's use of language. In other words, the spirit of the day demands that you not think ill of anyone else's use of language. If you believe in good grammar, you're the problem. And there's a large and powerful contingent in higher education today trying to eradicate thoughts about good and bad grammar, correct and incorrect word choices, effective and ineffective style. Brian Garner, who wrote the book on modern English usage, suggested the following terms of truce. Prescribers should be free to advocate a realistic level of linguistic tidiness without being molested for it, even as the describers are free to describe the mess all around them. And what is the point that most self-respecting linguists use standard English themselves? If it's really a matter of complete indifference to them, why don't they occasionally flout? Or should that be flaunt? The rules of grammar and usage, as they seemingly want everyone else to do. But they don't do this. They write by all the rules that they tell everyone else not to worry about. Renowned journalist Mark Halpern, who holds degrees in English language and literature, puts the point even more emphatically. It is typical for the linguist to pat the uneducated on their heads and assure them that some poor usage is just fine, even if they would never dream of employing such usages in their own work. On this basis, the linguists plume themselves on being democratic and charge their prescriptivist opponents with elitism. Finally, here's an approximation of a letter. A dear friend of our daughter wrote her when we were about to move from Toronto to Worcester in 1993, when they were both 11 years old. It epitomizes an extreme case of the encouragement descriptivists provide to their students and shows you why we left Canada. English skills were all supposed to come to the kids through osmosis. The same kind of wishful thinking led to a high school football player who was about to flunk out, get a chance to spell the word coffee. The principal said, If you spell even one letter correctly, you can stay in the program. Here's how he spelled it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. We'll try to speed up because we've got a Zoomer that's had a rough and busy weekend, it sounds like. Also, after that presentation, I just told myself, just come up here and say we're adjourned, because I know. But no, honestly, a couple things when you hit on it. We have some younger generation here. I can still consider myself young, if not young at heart. But it's amazing how you're at your computer, you're typing away, and how much Grammarly is telling me how to straighten things out, how we're texting as fast as we can to communicate. The lost art of what you're talking about is something that we definitely need to still back in school. So I think it's a very important topic. Also, penmanship. I look at Sandra and look at your beautiful penmanship when you send out thank you notes. I know a number of us in the office, we have a younger team there. We can't even write in cursive. So I would be challenged to write a letter in cursive, to be honest with you. So that is absolutely the truth. I hate to admit that. But Dee, thank you for your time. I didn't bring a four-way test rendition here, but I have them at my office, and I'm going to make a personal visit, or we'll meet for a cocktail and I'll give you one. How about that, bud? That work? Cool. So next week, we've got Paul Fryman, the owner of JAFB, who will come and speak with us. So if you didn't RSVP from the email this morning, you still have an opportunity to do so on Wednesday. We try to get the count here to Greystone by Thursday morning. So we ask if you have plans to be with us next Monday, please RSVP. Zoomers, make sure you send over the comments about audio. I got a couple of those, making sure that we mute throughout the session. And folks here, any recommendations on things that we can do as we move forward together, please make sure to send those over, and those definitely will be taken into consideration, okay? Folks, that is a great presentation. Dee, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it, and we stand adjourned. Have a good week, folks. Yeah, Ron. Yeah, do it.